Hello, everyone. Today it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Eduardo Miller from company Alliance. Alliance been our customer for quite some time. So we will today talk about how they decide on build versus buy, which is the topic of our today's episode. So we're going to be looking at how SaaS companies balance quick feature delivery versus third-party dependency, and that's where I brought Eduardo. So thank you very much for joining, Eduardo. Um, Welcome.
Thank you, Jerry. Pleasure to be here.
Great. So let's maybe start with a topic related to that. This podcast is mainly oriented towards product managers, and we usually invite managers, whereas you're VP of engineering at Alliance. So, can you maybe tell us a bit more about the relationship between product managers and engineering managers? um, I know it from kind of the perspective between how sales and marketing cooperates. I think this needs to be always a good cooperation. I know that maybe in the past these two departments, like marketing and sales, kind of were blaming each other for bad results, and we're definitely trying to avoid that here in Appmixer. So what's the kind of relationship between product managers and engineering managers? Can you share your experience on that?
Yeah. Collaboration is the word. Product managers, they have a very important role in the product management and development as well. And they work very close with engineering managers. So I feel that there are two main scenarios we can find out there. One scenario is where the project manager is very technical with a some sort of technical background coming from development, where it qualifies him or her to make technical decisions, and that is very helpful as well. Um, and we have product managers that come from a business area, from sales, pre-sales, or equivalent areas in the company, where they have a very clear approach in terms of the target market and how the product should work, because they know how users use the product. And these two elements, the engineering and product, they need to work side by side. Classically, we used to say that the product manager is the side of the product that brings why we need something in terms of features and what needs to be done to get that feature in place. Whereas the engineering team and engineering managers, they come with implement that and when, how long it will take to get it in place. In my career, I may say these two, in fact, are one, and they need to bring in their influence and collaboration to build a great product. You will find, for example, in companies that are mainly engineering focused, that you have an excellent product, high performance, super reliable, but you may find it not very friendly or in terms of usage, or sometimes happens that it seems that it tries to do too much, you lose, but it's great in terms of engineering.
Mhm.
Where when you have a product built more mainly for a non-technical product managers, they tend to be with an excellent user interface, user experience, but you may see a lack of robustness, or some tasks they are not very fluid, and you see that there's some missing bits in there. That's why the balance is needed, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why the why is important and the what needs to be in the product is important. How people are using for the developer that lives in that isolation, not really isolation, but the developers usually they spend time on research and development, R&D, researching, so they need to stay quiet for long times. So it's important to have this view from the market. That's where product managers bring this essence to build a great
Mm-hmm.
product.
Mm-hmm. And in your experience, you worked rather with those like group of technical product managers, or in your career you had a chance rather to meet people from with let's say sales and marketing background that turned product managers. If both, which
Um,
cooperation did you usually prefer?
um, I came from a background where I went in both roles in my career. I came from a back in time, the moment where product managers were not a role, and then they started working. So I did product management myself. But the best combination, in my view, today after 25 plus years of experience, practical experience, is a product manager coming from the business side of view,
Mm-hmm.
very strong in understanding your target market, sales and pre-sales processes, how to add value to any features or improvements you are adding to the product, side by side with a very well uh, defined product engineering manager. I feel
Mm-hmm.
it's important to have these different experiences, because when you have too much technicalities, or so it's important to have a it's what works better for me. I think you have the better product when you have a product manager that is not technical enough to make technical decisions. Then they care about the bits that engineers are not focused on. That's the perfect combination in my view.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. Now, to our topic today, our long-term customer of Appmixer. We will get to that experience later. Um, but maybe take it.
Mhm.
Let's take it from a bit more generally. What factors do you consider most important when deciding whether to build certain feature in house, or if you, or rather integrate a third-party solution?
Um, there are many factors for this approach. In my view, specifically, all of them are valuable, but I will start with the main two, in my view, are economic factors and cost efficiency. So you need to think about how much this will cost, this feature or this solution will cost, align with your core business and core skills. Uh, as an example, if you have a SaaS platform that is our case, focus on hospitality, and one of the our core business is concierge solutions for concierge messaging and upselling. We have some modules like automation and workflows. It's not our core business. Hence, we choose Appmixer to bring a solution on that. Similarly to, for example, extending the question, reporting. It's not our core business. Build a reporting framework. We we use an outsourced reporting framework. So
Mhm.
Interesting point on payments. We have the compliance and the regulation needed in data security. We have an outsourced solution as well that is PCI compliant, so we don't have to have full PCI compliance in scope. So that's another factor that brings us in. And on top of that, I will say it's also an opportunity to make use of new technologies and advancements on those areas that we don't need to worry about in terms of flows for automation. Every month we have a new connector, a new component, a new tool in flows we may add to our solution and take advantage to offer a better experience to our client without having to spend time, money, and have to build a skill to have that if we decided to have built a workflow tool, which is not the case. And the
Mm-hmm,
other hand
mm-hmm,
side, that give us time to focus on our core business, which is concierge and messaging and upselling features.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so I guess the general rule of thumb is realizing whether that's your core business, whether this is where you're adding the most value added, right? And then the first thing you
Yeah.
mentioned was the cost efficiency. Here, so we discussed the relationship between product managers and engineering managers. Now, when it comes to the decision, the final decision, whether you're going to go ahead with the third party or if you develop this in house, is this like who has the final word, and like what is the process of you and the product manager cooperating on analyzing which way to go?
That is the beauty of this cooperation. There's no final word. It's a common sense. It's a communal decision. The two need to agree on a decision to move to the next step and execute it. So,
Mm-hmm.
and in practice, what happened is the product manager will bring and analyze the solution from a cost perspective, time to market perspective, uh, if adds value, meaning if we are what we are getting. So basically, why and what is very simple way to see that. So the product manager will bring why we need uh, to buy another solution instead of build from a business perspective and adding value, etc. Whereas the engineering manager will validate reliability, scalability, robustness,
Mm-hmm.
standardization on APIs, troubleshooting, and all the technical factors that will make that choice from a technical perspective efficient for
I see.
uh, yeah. And for example, it also validates compliances if compliance is involved, all the technical analysis. So together you will have, and that makes the decision very easily because each part working in collaboration, they are specialized on their topics. So makes it much easier to have a decision from both than one side or the other.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so that's good that you kind of do it together. Now I think like, well, at least I face this sometimes. I feel like developers usually tend to think of every feature that needs to be added to the product as, we can build it, right? Whereas Mm,
Yes.
I think the product managers rather want to have this as soon as possible and have this like costing less and have the shortest time to market, right? So how do you agree with that, or did you like is this tendency like general in
I will give
companies
you
that you met?
I will give you the best answer I heard. It depends, my friend. It depends. So there's no right and wrong answer in there. Yes, it is a fact that developers they are passionate by building everything using the latest compiler, the latest language, etc. Hence, the absolute need of having a non-technical product manager involved. That's why they are there, because you need to keep the focus on the important things and make the right choice. So as developers, as you rightly said, they will think about one side, and as product managers will think about, I need this fast and quick. And then the beauty of this is achieve the balance between product managers and engineering managers and make this decision together, because sometimes you will choose, even if you choose to buy a solution, you may spend a bit more time to buy the right solution. It's not just buy, is buy the right thing.
Hmm.
In our case, we did evaluate a few workflow solutions before we made a decision for Appmixer, and multiple factors from both. All the factors you mentioned, they were took into consideration, because Appmixer happens that from the solutions we found out there in the market, Appmixer was the one to give you the right reliability, confidence, and robustness we needed, as well as provide us with the flexibility,
Hmm.
easy to learn and implement, and get the time to market and the speed we needed in place as well. So there's no a unique factor. It's always a balance.
Hmm. 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 Now, can we take a look at some specific experiences that you had when you were the one, probably alongside with the product manager, deciding whether to build something or buy something? Like, what were the biggest challenges there, and like how did it come? Can you give us some examples from your past career, and maybe even the one when you were deciding for Appmixer? Like, did you were you thinking of building this in house? What was the thought process? Please share any practical details that you may hear.
Uh, uh, yeah, I mean, I, I, I have I have experience on contact center market as well. So I worked many years for software companies building suits for contact center voice, video, and messaging.
Hmm.
And in a similar fashion, back in time, for example, a situation where we decided to build. So in contact center, we have inbound calls, we have outbound calls, the famous dialers, and video calls as well. So we got to a point where the algorithm that calculates the number of calls you need to make to keep all your agents in your contact center as busy as long as possible, to avoid waste of time, idle time. We had some companies, they build some sort of algorithms or allow us to write scripts to simulate algorithms, but we found that that seat scenario we had the need for a market differentiation. And it was defined that as much as we had back in time some options in the market, what none of them were ready to define and predict the calls and keep the agents in the contact center busy for long for to achieve the 2% we wanted of wasted time. Usually it's 5, 10, maybe more, depending on your time of operation. If it's
Mm-hmm.
telesales, it's a bit less. If it's that collection, people don't pick up the phone, so it's a bit more. You need to dial more calls. So to bring this differentiation for our product, and because we already had the skills in house, another topic, because it was the same technical skills, we decided to build a module containing the algorithm using AI, the classic AI, learn machine learning, to run the calculations in for our specific model back in time. So in that situation, the dialing algorithm for the contact center solution was built in house,
Mm-hmm.
and from that point we added on the intellectual property of the company, what and that brought lots of advantage in that scenario. Same company, same software, different aspect of the software. IVRs, interactive voice responses, so the classic 0800s and chatbots. So we found ourselves in situations where we need to build that fast and quick, and we found that every single client, they ask for a different IVR, different language, different countries, different questions. This is a 0800 from a telesale, so they have a different approach. This is a 0800 for that collection. They have a different approach of customer services, or later chatbots as well. So for that point, we found ourselves in the exact same moment. Do we build a software to allow us to build the dialogue flow for that IVR, or the dialogue flow for that chat bot, or we build a solution for that? Uh, we bought a solution for that because we decided that the algorithm or the tooling to build uh, the dialogue for a chatbot, it's not something that is in our core business. We will provide the integration with WeChat, Telegram, Facebook, WhatsApp, SMS, and others, because it was a thing, part of our core business. But the dialogue, we subscribed, in fact, to a company that provides us a workflow tool. And the biggest factor was we could have built, but that was not our core business, and time to market was a key factor for us back in time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so we did that. In our current company, Alliance, we decided for Appmixer to automate flows for this exact same reason. It's not our core business, the time to market. I like to say that we use this Appmixer to build flows, and we tend to use the term withdrawal flows just to illustrate
Mm-hmm.
how easy it is. So because it's becoming something that you don't need a specialized user to do that anymore. You can create a scenario where your end user can drag and drop components on screen and build their flows. For example, when you have scenarios where we use that today, we have check-in. So after check-in, we use back in time it was like hard-coded emails, etc. Today we abandon that because it's different per hotel. Every hotel they have different timings and email formats and information they want to send to guests. So they have flows. They just drag and drop the flows. They have the template format. They send emails from a flow, nice and easy. And that became a trendy thing because today they choose to use flow number one that send easy mail. Oh, now it's Christmas seasons. They have this flows pre defined to send Christmas. Then they send one extra emails with the attractions on that their city. So it becomes something that adds value and it's convenient and time to market is just phenomenal.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Great, great. So it really depends case by case. There's nothing like we cannot really generalize that. I think it's important, as you mentioned, like if you have the right resources in house, if you have the knowledge to build that yourself, and then whether there's a solution existing on the market. I think that was the first case when you mentioned there was basically nothing
Yeah,
that could help you achieve what you wanted, right? So in that case there's no other option that than basically build it, right? um
yeah,
okay.
makes sense.
Do you have any maybe um uh, like some results of when did this go right, and maybe even when the decision was not correct, maybe like you estimated that it's going to take much less, and then much less time in development, and then you finally decided to actually implement some existing solution. Any numbers that you could share here, but that, for example, by implementing a solution XYZ, you feel you saved a lot of like this amount of time and so on, anything like that? Like do you kind of take a look back at this decision once this is finished, once this is implemented, and you kind of reviewing your decision um, once the implementation is done?
Absolutely. Who doesn't, to be honest? There are plenty cases of that. A practical example where is one of my previous company when I arrived to the company. I remember contact center market. Topic is reporting tools. That was the thing. So the decision by the engineering manager, going back to the initial topic, was let's build a reporting tool from scratch. After 2 years and costing three developers, one backend and two front ends for two and a half years, I will say it was a long term. They built a very interesting kind of super scientific and absolutely complicated to use reporting tool. Lots of grids and cards. So it was super flexible, but you needed like a super specialist to set up the initial design. The
Mm,
long story short, after 2.5 years, in fact, the decision was made 3 years after, and after investing lots of money. And we find out by using the trackers, it was a SaaS web, so we knew who was using or not effectively opening that page on the system, that module in the system. And the adoption was like 3%. And we found that like from, yeah, 3% maximum of the users was really using that because
mm,
they were not able to set up, to define reports, to create things in there. So only the process on those screens to create a pie chart to between connected calls, not answered calls, simple things that should be out of the box. It was so complicated that people just not using that.
mm,
And worse, it became a problem for the company because we were deficient in reports. And the first approach 2 years after. They had to hire or they moved one of the support guys with one of the pre-sales guys to build reports for clients because it was so complicated and there was nothing out of the box. Long story short, 3 years passed and we got together and the product manager, hey, a new product manager, he just asked that classic question that every single developer hates: why you are building a reporting tool if we are a contact center company? It's like our core business is contact center. Our job is connect people, voice, video, messaging, reports. It's important, but it's not our core business. And then we thought, hey, let's let's find solutions for that. And being working with other frameworks in previous jobs, we together found three options, and within 3 months we replaced all that mega reporting module by a reporting tool we bought, where it's much more advanced than our reporting tool because there was a whole company thinking and building tools for report, while where were like we had like three developers from a contact center company trying to build a reporting tool, which is funny enough. So much more advanced drag and drop. So in 3 months we replaced and we increased. I can't remember the precise number, but it was like more than 60% of the clients were building reports themselves. Not just that, because this reporting tool was so much ahead of anything we had before. They had
Mm.
templates, predefined reports, so they are miles ahead of us in terms of reporting things. So they were web, white labeled. So we solved the problem instead of we could have solved the problem 3 years before, but luckily we changed the mind. And yeah, that was a very classic example where you should buy a solution when it's not your core business and you need things quickly
Mm.
and effective.
Wow, wow. So three developers working on that for 2.5 years, and then basically that
Yeah,
was crashed and replaced with a solution that you bought. And how much time did it take you to implement that solution then?
3 months. I mean, yeah, 3 months of
Mm.
development, and let's say an extra month doing research about which one we choose,
Mm.
validating APIs, validating value added, and everything around in collaboration with a product manager. And together we decided with let's have a number 4 months. We replaced 3.5 years, maybe a
Mm.
bit more, of clunkiness and things not used, and we changed the game on that. It was a classic approach,
Mm. Mm.
an
And you
example for
mentioned
that.
that
Yeah.
once you launched the reporting module built in house, there was just 3% of your users using that module actually. Now, once you had that like ready-made module built in, um, do you also remember like what was the percentage? Like, was it much better? Like,
More than 60%, definitely
oh
more
wow,
than
okay.
60% using that model we got from Google Analytics. And this was
Mm-hmm.
like between 1 and 3 months after we launched the new version of the reporting tool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's a great example when you know buying was better than building in this case. Do you maybe like either? I would be interested to hear another example like that if you could share, or If not, do you have like
I can have a recent one. Yeah,
okay.
in Alliance we work with lots of integrations, but in that sense, depending on the integration, because we kind of aggregate data from the property management system for hotels. We aggregated data from service order systems, some other kinds of like spa systems, etc. So we aggregate everything in one single screen for the concierge to have like a full view of the guest, right? Right.
Mhm.
What happened is some of these integrations, we see them as outside of our core business. For example, we have our mobile app. We It's a white label app, so we brand from depending on the hotel we are depending on the client.
Mhm.
And one of the features we have there is uh, extra services. For example, you have a reservation, and then we may offer you a car to bring you from the airport to the hotel, right? And this kind of integration, it's very dynamic and different, because if you need to somehow integrate with a car company in France, in UK, in Slovakia, in Poland, in Norway, in the US, depending where you are, you have multiple options. So the cost of building 500,000 integrations for each kind of car company, we are now using Appmixer to do that. So when we have a specific integration like that, when a check-in happens, we have a flow that detects the check-in depending if the guest accepted the recommendation of have a reservation. The automation of sending the notification to the car company is using flows. And the beauty of this is some car companies are just a bunch of guys. They don't have a system.
Mhm.
So the flow will send an SMS message or WhatsApp message to
Mm.
the responsible person responsible. If we have a car company, it's more automated and they have a system. The same flow at the very end, we remove the SMS component and we add like an integration component. We send an API call to the system, same result. In a bit,
Mhm.
being very brutal in a matter of minutes, we made this change, and this is part of our deployment model. So we've made this decision back in time for the reasons we discussed before, and it's not our core business. It's cost effective, time to market. It's simple. It's reusable. It's The changes are very simple. I don't need a very specialized developer on certain topics. I have a deployment person that just throw a component in there, and the magic happens. So this is a
Mhm.
recent
Mhm.
example where Appmixer is used for this kind of automation, and we choose buy.
Perfect. Perfect. Now, before we leave this experience part, like a direct experience with this decision, do you also have another example, maybe from the other way around, where you maybe decided to buy something, but then looking back at this decision, you realized that was a mistake, and you had to build this in house, or this hasn't occurred in your career?
Uh, yes, it happened. Um, Back in the contact center, we decided to buy a telephony, like a PBX software,
Mhm.
right? And the decision was made to buy a PBX software that was not widely known. but it was closed. So that brought the risk of we were locked in that single vendor. Everything went well for 5, 6 years, and some point back in time, that vendor they gone bust, and we got this gift, this Greek gift of having a VoIP driver, a VoIP PBX from a vendor that didn't exist anymore. Uh, Long story short, we decided to not build from scratch, but take a very well established free PBX, is a very well known PBX in the market, open source, as a API based, and we build on top of that module, exists today, and it's used by wide market. So we decided to build our own native and specific and very well integrated version of PBX with our contact center solution. So, and after that, we spent a lot of money in doing that, but it was part of our core business. And back in time, we had a PBX specialized for contact center. It gave us the ability, because we did integrate it with that dialer algorithm, predictive dialer algorithm I mentioned before. So we made two topics into one, creating a differentiation in the market while using a third party one. So that is the practical one. So you need to carefully evaluate uh, the vendor that you're choosing. Otherwise, you may face this kind of situation where
Mhm.
you're locked in and you need to find a way out.
Mm. That brings us actually to my next question on the risks associated with dependency on external vendors or third party products. Are there any other risks in your opinion than the vendor lock-in that you just mentioned, and how do you hedge against such risks?
Yeah, risks exist everywhere, right? So the secret here is manage them. In my example, we were in a time where we didn't took into consideration those risks. So today, most of the solutions are SaaS, which is a much different than 10, 15 years ago. So that
Mhm.
is a mega important advantage. So I will say that don't dream that there's no risk, because this is a business. So just be very committed and clever and manage them and mitigate them. How you do that today is have subscriptions. From a business perspective, do your homework well. So choose wisely your vendor. That's the first thing. Choose wisely uh, with using the right criterias. So don't choose. Try to do not choose a friend because it's you have a friend in the vendor. Try to choose a good product. So balance your decision, and on top of that, the best approach in my view is don't buy license. Try to subscribe to license.
Mhm.
To mitigate, depending on how you buy license, you may not have updates and you may lose, depending on the situation, the advantage of having free updates and have the most advancements available to you to use in your company. So subscription with flexible contracts is beyond the added value criteria, its advantage. Uh, Try to have as much as software as a service options. if you can. You need to balance if you want to host, if possible, or you just buy. So we have hybrid environments currently in our company. But basically, APIs first, API driven, flexible contracts, and constant management of the relationship. So always keep one eye in your vendor, stay in touch, learn from your vendor what is the current situation in all sides, from what are the new advantages that are coming, how the company is behaving, from a financial perspective, from a technological perspective. Stay in touch, I think. That may prevent you to find yourself in a solution as we did, that we had to react after the vendor went bust, because it was a vendor that I think we spoke with them when the solution was bought, and then never again. We found out that they went bust when someone sent an email to support, and hey, guess what? The company doesn't exist anymore. So,
Mm.
and if you have time and opportunity, always have a plan for migrating or to transition to another vendor if the worst case happens, just because it's business. But generally
Mm.
speaking, flexible contracts and have a proper integration API based is the way to go to mitigate, and communication to mitigate and keep this business relationship for as long as possible.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right. All right. Well, I assume though that like really being prepared for the most extreme
Yeah.
scenario where the vendor is out of business, isn't it from like isn't it just a dream, or do you have like a um in your experience, was that the case when you were like prepared for such risk, and you knew that okay, currently we're using that vendor, but if anything goes wrong, we know what we're going to do next? Do you really have such scenarios? And
Uh,
um
yeah. Interesting question, because after learn the lesson of not being prepared, using the example I described you before of that PBX company,
mhm,
I really never had a situation where the vendor went bust.
mhm,
We had situations where the vendor was bought by another companies, which is very common, but the relationship was renewed, and we kept using the vendor. And in that case, it was like a natural migration to the new vendor, the new company, and it was all natural. We were made aware on time, so the vendor positioning always is a relevant part of this equation, because if your vendor keeps you up to date, that brings that magical thing to any business relationship that is called trust. So I know something's happening. I know I will have to migrate to something else. My vendor is making me aware. So, but I was never, I never found myself in a position where the vendor combust, and because I've somehow learned the lesson, but a bit of
mhm.
luck as well. Never been facing that, needing to face this situation again.
You also touched on the situations when the vendor, like the third party product or platform that you bought for your company, is acquired by another player.
Yeah.
You mentioned that this happens quite often. Obviously, it's software, so
Yes.
there's like every day there's some acquisition. In your experience, was this problematic? Sort of like you know, I'd like to, probably we will not figure out like what's the statistic when it goes right and it goes wrong? Like, what was your experience in that? Like when a company was acquired, um, did they remain? Um, did they continue like providing those services, and could you use that product, or did they close it and you had to migrate to something else, but it was communicated enough in advance so that you could do such change? How did it go?
Uh, Usually, we are communicated in advance that change will happen, or when, if not communicated in advance, a communication in terms of we were acquired, our new name is ABCD from now on, but we will keep our services active for the next 5 years or 3 years. And so and I feel that this is not a super problematic situation in 99% of the cases. It's very rare. uh, Again, I didn't have a situation where the company was acquired and ceased to exist straightforward, because usually the company buying, it's on their interest to keep the services running. So all examples I got, the reporting tool, for example, they used to be Curiosity, a Ukrainian company, and they were acquired by another company from Latvia. And in these movements, some of the developers, they moved to Latvia. And they kept the product as is, working for 7 years, I guess. And they offered a transition to a new version of the product, which was a mixed from the previous product from the previous company, from the new company that acquired the Ukrainian one. So usually, most of the cases is just a matter of planning, because it's on the supplier's interest, keep make your life easier to keep providing the service and keep going and keep the clientele as well. So in practice, the only situations I had was migrating from one from from one product to another product equivalent, usually better, in a fashionable and planned approach. So at this specific topic, except my experience when I was not prepared, I don't have any downside. I think it's a normal thing in business. You just need to be ready for that. You should
Hmm.
consider as a mitigation, but not as a problem, because it happens
Right.
everywhere. Your company may be acquired, and maybe you'll be the one supplying this transition to your clients at any point in time as well.
Hmm. Hmm. All right. So I've got a last topic or question for you. Now, looking forward, how do you see the build versus buy decision evolving in SaaS industry? Do you think there'll be a shift towards more custom built solutions, or rather deeper partnerships with third party vendors and integrating your product from, let's say, kind of microservices that you just integrate in and build something new out of it?
My view is software industry. Well, our industry, software industry, is very young. It started in 1942, 1950, so it's very young. So from most of industries, we are the last experienced industry. Uh, at the same time, we are getting to a point or a phase in our maturity as an industry where the automotive industry, they already are there for ages, and building industry are there for ages, where partnerships will be key. A good example, you build a house, so you hire a construction company. They don't build the bricks, they don't build your plastic windows, they don't build the plaster frames. They they buy these and they assemble your house. Same with automotive companies. So most of the automotive companies, they have some core business, which is interesting because some of the companies, they believe that the engine is their core business. Some companies, they believe that their design is their core business, then they do themselves that part. Everything else they acquire. They acquire seats, they acquire the electronics, they acquire the dashboards, the plastic parts, etc., etc., etc. Similar thing. It's very clear for me where we are with software industry, mature software industry. You will have your core business. You probably be focused on one element of the solution you are providing. You If you look around, the word solution is much more used these days than system or product, because companies are selling solutions. Software companies are selling solutions, not products specifically anymore, or systems anymore. We are selling solutions. And our solution will be a mix of partnerships by nature. In the SaaS alone, you don't have to worry about servers and networking, anything in that anymore. That's the
Mm.
starting point. So the building blocks are bought these days, not built anymore. And so will be any module that will not include your core business uh, part of your solution. So I see a hybrid model where you will build your core modules, whereas you will buy everything, all the surrounding modules that will compose your solution that's not core business, you will buy, and that will become a natural relationship between suppliers and buyers, like any other industry. Just happens we are getting there, if not there yet. But for me, that's the future. Using
Mm.
open
Mm.
source is one of the options, but you will not find open source for everything. So it will be a mixed hybrid between everything to build flexibility, add value, and etc. to for your solution as a service.
Okay, perfect. Right. Well, thank you very much, Eduardo, for sharing your experience and ideas in this build versus buy never ending discussion. And yeah, best of luck. And it was a pleasure having you here. So thanks once again for coming.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Jerry. Nice to see you again, and thank you very much. My pleasure.